Hi everyone! Welcome to our monthly online hangout space, #ChatUp, Real Talk, Real Impact. Brought to you by Quarantalk Media and supported by the United States Embassy in the Philippines. I'm your host, Jermaine Halandoni Derunia. Here on ChatUp, we bring you conversations on social issues and various advocacies, and today we will zero in on environmental justice. So join our chat. Keep your messages and questions coming on the comment section and share this live stream using our official hashtags, #ChatUp and #RealTalkRealImpact. Let's now go into today's conversation and find out what's up. World leaders gathered in Egypt from November 6 to 18 for the United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP27. COP stands for the Conference of Parties, where UNFCCC parties meet to assess progress against climate impacts and establish legally binding obligations for participating countries to reduce those impacts. Since 1995, two main issues have been discussed in COP. First, the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and second, the fight against climate change. Due to human activities and greenhouse gas emissions, the Earth's climate is changing and the average temperature of the planet is rising. The recent report from the UN Climate Change shows that we are not on track to secure a climate-resilient world. Thus, more ambitious climate action by 2030 is needed. Today, let's learn more about the highlights of COP27, its implications, and what more we can do for climate action and environmental justice. Let's now call in our guest. Joining us today is an environmentalist and human rights activist who is a staunch advocate for climate justice, biodiversity conservation, and natural resource conflict management. He is a recipient of the 2018 The Outstanding Young Man of the Philippines Award. He currently leads Living Laudato Si Philippines, an interfaith movement arising from Pope Francis' encyclical about sustainability and the climate crisis. He is also the convener of Aksyon Klima Pilipinas. We will hear about his experience with COP27. We have with us tonight, Kuya Rodne Galicha. Hi, Kuya Rodne.
Hello, isang magandang hapon. Good afternoon, everyone, and greetings from Sharm el Sheikh here in Egypt.
Okay, thank you, Kuya, for joining us. We'll talk about your experience later. Okay, our next guest is a climate justice and gender equity advocate who was a 2020 YSEALI Academic Fellow on Environmental Issues. She is a co-founder of ShexEarth Project, an educational training on environmental and gender-based issues. In 2021, she was awarded by the Philippines Environmental Bureau Management as an environmental youth icon. She is currently the media and communications head for the Ibayaw Youth Collective. We have with us tonight Aprille Juanillo. Hi, Aprille.
Hi
Hi!
everybody, magandang gabi po.
Magandang gabi, April. Thanks for joining us. And also joining us is a communications practitioner who has devoted much of his personal and professional life advocating for environmental journalism and working in the fields of youth development and peace building. Our guest is the executive director of the award-winning Association of Young Environmental Journalists, Val Vestil. Hi, Val!
Hi, good evening. Thanks,
Good
Jermaine.
evening.
And hello to everybody watching us. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you guys for joining us. Alam ko it's a very busy week for all of you, lalo na COP was still ongoing for the past week. And of course, si Kuya Rodne, no, nasa Egypt pa as of now. So let's dive into it na, no? Let's talk about yung mga key issues and highlights that was talked about during COP27. Okay. So this is one of the questions na gusto ko talagang masagot ninyo at malaman din ng ating mga manonood, no? We are very aware of this, that the rising global temperature should be limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius. But according to the recent UN climate change report, it says that we are not on track. So my question is, has COP27 addressed the calls for phasing out all fossil fuels? Who
Ah,
can, Kuya Rodney, go ahead.
the text, again, the cover text, the draft decision, uh, does not reflect the phasing out of fossil fuels.
Yeah,
Actually, the text would say it was so weak. It is weak, as I understand. It's weak that the text cannot actually say that we will limit global warming by 1.5 degrees Celsius and strive at least below, no, below 2 degrees Celsius. Um, I cannot remember the text, but there's this phrase, facing out of uh, face
face
down, not actually
coal.
facing
Yeah,
out, face down
oo.
of unabated coal power
Coal.
and face out and rationalize inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. This is very alarming. This is very alarming. We need to phase out all fossil fuels, which is, the phasing out should be rapid, it should
Mm-mm.
be equitable, just, and fair. But we cannot see this in the text. So medyo hindi pala medyo, nakakaalarma lang at kaya nga na-extend, no, na-extend yung pag-uusap hanggang ngayong araw.
Right, right. That's very alarming, no? For our viewers who are not really that familiar about fossil fuels and this 1.5 degrees Celsius na limit natin dapat. Can someone explain to me why is it important na limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius lang yung ating yung rise ng ating temperature? Val or April?
Yeah, okay. Ayan. So, there's a need for us to limit the rise of our temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius because any temperature higher than that is no longer livable for us human beings. So, essentially, when we're talking about limiting the increase of our temperature, we're really just talking about our survival.
Mm.
And that's why all efforts must be directed towards limiting our rise of temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So in a very layman kind of explanation, that's what it means. It's like what we say when we try to explain it to children or to young people. It's like having fever. When we have
Right.
fever as human beings, that's an indicator, right, that something's wrong with our body. And it's the same way in our planet that if our the temperature, the rise in temperature that we have is higher than 1.5 degrees Celsius, then the planet will become inhabitable in the same way that if our body is is higher than our regular 37
Mm-mm.
degrees Celsius temperature, then it will also be inhabitable for us.
Right.
So yun,
Ayun.
maybe the science part someone can add. Right?
Thanks, thanks. But that was clearly explained, no, to our viewers na nanonood, hindi masyadong familiar. That was
Yes.
laymanized na, no, very easy to digest. Val, anything to add?
Yeah, and the buzzword really for this whole conference of parties is keeping the 1.5 degrees Celsius target alive. People need to understand why do we need to talk about this in a global level. It's called COP27, the Conference
Mm-mm.
of Parties. When the parties in COP means countries, right? So this is the conference of countries to agree as a united body to limit temperatures to not
Mm-mm.
go beyond
Beyond, yeah.
1.5. We are, and that's unfortunate because we are at a point where globally one country alone doing extra effort and extra work on preventing climate emission, on preventing carbon emissions to go up will not help
Right.
the unified goal to be able to keep 1.5 degrees, that goal alive. It needs to be now everyone's concern. All the major polluters, all the countries in the global south. It is a global concern. Climate change is no longer geographically exclusive. And that's why we need to hold a conference of all countries to really commit to have, we have nationally determined contributions or NDCs.
And these
And
things.
that's where the countries say, hey, this is my commitment, X% of um, we will have a goal to keep our emissions below X%. And so it's different per country. And if countries meet these individual, targets and goals, then we can take a step closer to 1.5C. And I don't know if the text in COP27 is final. When we say text, it's like the final agreement or the
Right.
closeout
Mm-mm.
agreement, that is a result, an output of the COP27 meet. It hasn't, I believe, Kuya Rodney, am I right? It's not finished and published yet. They're still doing an overtime of that. And this happened in COP26 as well in Glasgow. And when I was there, the conference had ended, but the text was not finished
Wasn't
yet. And I'm
finalized.
sure
Oh.
Kuya Rodney, in the many COPs that he had attended, they have the same issues that the
Right.
conference ends but the text is not ready, and that is curious to me because that means countries have a difficult time of agreeing towards certain agreements.
Mm-mm.
So that's where
Well,
we're at.
thanks for that, guys, no, for that answer. It seems we're looking at it and listening to it, it seems na um, yung sinabi na facing down coal instead of facing out fossil fuels is such a weak statement. Or we're not really achieving what we want, no, for that matter. So, which is very appalling and sad in sa kontekstong ito. Okay, so we have now the question. I've heard of this a lot of times now. The concept of loss and damage finance. It's a hot topic now, no, in COP, and it has been a topic that's been circulating around climate justice advocates, no, na circles na yun. First, before I ask you the question on this, I'd like to know muna, ano yung loss and damage finance for the benefit of the people watching? What is the concept of loss and damage finance?
Ito yung
Si Kuya Rodney.
ng 2013 sa war sa Poland. Ito yung 2013, nagkaroon kasi ng Conference of Parties din in
Mm-mm.
2013. At nangyari ang Typhoon Haiyan, yung
Yeah.
Yolanda, no?
Mm-mm.
And Commissioner Yeb Sanyo was there. Then Commissioner ng Climate Change Commission. And then there they talk about the destruction, the losses of lives and livelihoods, the damages of infrastructure, among others. And they agreed on a mechanism. And actually, yung inspiration yan ay yung nangyari sa Pilipinas. Then they called it Warsaw International Mechanism for Loss and Damage.
Mm-mm. Loss and damage.
When we talk about, pag sinabi natin yan, ito yung bibigyan ng parang payment or reparation
Reparation.
doon sa mga historical na damages na epekto ng krisis sa klima. At
Mm-mm.
yung sisingilin dito at dapat magbibigay ay ang mga bansa o yung Annex 1 countries, yung mga bansang responsable sa climate crisis. Pero when we talk about Warsaw International Mechanism, meron pa diyang iba, no? Yung facility, Loss and Damage Finance Facility. Iba pa yung Loss and Damage Fund. At yung komite na magbibigay ng technical assistance doon sa mga most vulnerable kung ano mga gagawin. So nagkaroon naman ulit, no, sa Madrid. Ito yung tinatawag na Santiago Network for Loss and Damage. Ito yung komite o yung body na maatasan na i-assist yung mga vulnerable countries, ano yung mga needs nila, etc. So, kung na-approve yung Santiago Network, yung operationalization niya, this COP, hindi siya makaka-operate kasi dapat kung baby ito ng Warsaw International Mechanism, yung Santiago Network, kinakailangan niyang tumayo. At para siya tumayo at makalakad, kinakailangan niya ng finance facility. Hindi siya mag-work effectively kung wala namang finance facility at walang magbibigay na pondo. Yung finance facility, ito yung maglalatag, no, ng terms and conditions. Kung paano itanggapin, kung paano i-disburse, at kung sino yung makatatanggap. So, tatlo yan. Yung Santiago Network for Loss and Damage, yung Loss and Damage Finance Facility, at yung Loss and Damage Fund.
Ayun. Thank you for that, Kuya Rodne, for explaining it to us clearly. Now, my question is, given all that information and as to why we needed that, no, has there been a concrete decision on establishing a climate financing? Alam ko ang dami na sistema na kailangan maging in place, pero ano na ba yung konkreto na desisyon natin na naging on COP, on the loss and damage finance?
Sa G77 plus China, may proposal, no, for that finance facility. In principle, the operationalization ng Santiago Network para magkaroon niya ng tao, magkaroon ng secretariat, magkaroon ng board, etc. In principle, maaprubahan na siya, no, this COP. At yun nga. Pero yung demand natin is not only that. There should be a finance facility. At meron na kasi mga nag-pledge, di ba, ng mga bansa for loss and damage finance. So how can we disburse that? How can we provide assistance to the most vulnerable of communities if there's no facility but there's funding, no, at ang lahat ng, pero alam nyo, marami ang nag-oppose dito sa finance facility, specifically the United States, well, sometimes China, pero let's see what will happen. But at the maximum, no, or at the minimum, yung operationalization ng Santiago Network, malamang ito yung ma-approve sa COP na ito.
Thanks, Kuya. Val, anything to add?
Yeah, in terms of, I believe the loss and damage finance facility was proposed by the EU. Tama ba, Kuya Rodne? It was proposed by the EU.
Yes.
It was proposed by the EU, which is a superpower, a united superpower in terms of the global north. But the EU emphasizes that it is not the EU only who should be committed to follow on with this finance facility, but also big countries. And then Kuya Rodney mentions that madami ang countries that are, hindi naman madami, may mga countries that are superpower countries that have a hard time, being okay with the loss and damage finance facility. And this is America, and this is China, the world's second largest emitter of heat trapping gases. So it's no surprise that for movements towards loss and damage, the ones who inflict the most pain, so to say, have the most difficult time agreeing with such an agreement. And because that will really speak of the actual work on loss and damage financing. And we know that the Philippines is one of the most climate change vulnerable countries in the world. So if the EU and those who agree with it and those who push for it will make the loss and damage finance facility happen, it will really benefit us, the Philippines, financially, because we're part of G77 and then we're super vulnerable to climate change. So we get financing from these countries who are emitting a lot. But that has been the conversation for years.
For the longest time na,
So the question is, when is this gonna roll?
Yeah, when will this finally happen? No. Nabanggit mo, Val, no, that the Philippines is one of the most vulnerable countries and is sa mga demographic na very vulnerable to climate change are women. So I'd like to ask Aprille if this loss and damage financing will be given finally to the victims of climate change. How would it benefit yung mga women na nakatira sa very vulnerable areas? Specifically, yung mga nasa tabing dagat at yung mga kababaihan sa rural areas?
Right. That's a very important question because, again, while the effects of climate change chooses no one, climate change really disproportionately affects women. And this is because of the number one, the role that women play in society, and second, because of even our biological makeup. First, I want to key in on the role that we play in society. So women have an invisible care work. We parang it's almost automatic that women are in charge of the care work, and in other places, especially in the rural areas, even in the Philippines, especially in the Philippines, women are still the ones gathering food or making certain that there's food on the table, there's clean water for the family. And we also have women farmers who are not even acknowledged by that, or they are women farmers just because they support their husbands who actually do the toiling of the land. Second is the natural or the biological makeup of women, wherein because we go through our periods, we are largely affected by the environment around us. And so any drastic change in the environment or in nature would also gladly affect um, how we function biologically. So this kind of funding is important because if it will be distributed properly and justly, then this will give women a lot of liberation, starting off with economic liberation. When women can have economic liberation, they can perform whatever duties they have better, and therefore can help take care of their families better, take care of the communities better, because just like what staunch environmental activists and indigenous rights activists would say, women are very close to nature in a sense that women have this almost automatic tendency to care. And in terms of addressing climate change, the effects of climate change, it has to be care work. You cannot you cannot do this, as what Val mentioned earlier, we cannot do this independently anymore. It's really a multi-pronged, multi-dimensional approach that we have to take. And that's one of the ways that women can be supported and to take better roles, to take on better leadership roles, or to take on the roles that they have in their houses, in the community, and even in decision-making tables. So I guess parang that's one, the economic liberation that it can give, and also the economic insurance. Now, whatever damage that they're trying to still recover from, they can recover immediately or must fast now when they have that kind of support.
Thanks for that, April. Very well said. Napakalinaw na talagang it would really benefit women. And of course, a lot of people have been victims rather of the climate change. No, so these are some of the concrete solutions that we want to happen uh, to phase out fossil fuels, and of course, yung loss and damage finance. Now, I want to ask you, what are the false climate solutions that have been emerging that you activists and environmentalists are pushing back on? I know marami tayo top of your head. Ano ba yung mga false solutions na pinupush ngayon? But in reality, they're just, false solutions. They're not concrete solutions for the problem.
They say yung market and non-market solutions, no, climate solutions. If we say market, we see that as a pseudo solution. Kasi if we say market, at the end of the day, you talk about profit. No, there's also another one that we're very vigilant, and we need to study more. This global shield thing. Global shield. Ito yung magbibigay ng insurance. Insurance dun sa most vulnerable. And this was promoted by European countries such as Germany. So if you say insurance, dapat may premium ka, magbabayad ka. And whose terms? Whose
Right.
terms? Whose conditions? So for us, if when you talk about insurance, you talk about the future risk, no? Yung future risk na mangyayari. While we talk about the future risk, insurance, etc., hindi pa nga natin na-resolve yung mga risks and yung mga losses and damages historically and the now, no? Yung ngayon na mga impacts ng climate crisis. Number two, I think, is not directly connected sa atmospheric problem na meron tayo or sa climate crisis. But as we've been telling people many times, the infrastructure and the kind of planning our country has, We're not talk about other countries anymore. When we talk about risks and about the impacts of the climate crisis, what kind of infrastructure do we implement? Ito ba yung tinatawag nilang causeways? Ito ba yung tinatawag nilang dams? Ito ba yung tinatawag nilang mining? And ito ba yung tinatawag nilang conversion of lands? That in fact, all this will actually exacerbate or intensify the effects of the climate crisis. For me, all those are false solutions, actually, among others.
Mga, yes, thanks Kuya. Mga pseudo solutions lang. Despite of mga climate activists nating asking for concrete solution, they're giving us these pseudo solutions, which we don't want. We need action right now. Val, any other thing or like false solutions that you are pushing back on? You're on mute, Val.
The most, lack of a better term, stupid. No, I'm not gonna use stupid. The most insane thing I've read, as one of the solutions that some superpowers are doing is a circular carbon economy. Circular carbon economy, and then they present a carbon capture plan. And this is kind of connected to carbon offsetting. So I do not know too much about it, but from the term itself, carbon capture plan, it plans to capture carbon that is already being produced or is already in the air. And then that is kind of like the cousin of carbon offsetting, where where producers do programs, projects, and activities, multi-million, multi-billion activities, to try and offset the carbon that they are producing by doing green things to clean the air. Now, these are false solutions. People need to understand that these are false solutions, like a circular carbon economy, a carbon capture plan. To me, I find that this is a false solution because you are not getting to the root of the
Right.
problem, which is the production of carbon. We need to stop. We need to transition from fossil fuel, stop depending on carbon, and go towards clean energy. Now, countries are delaying the transition from fossil fuel by presenting plans that sound really grand and really nice. In fact, um, the world's second largest oil producer is committing $40 billion worth for this carbon capture plan. It sounds like a lot of money. It sounds really good technically to capture carbon in the atmosphere. That's great. But is it really stopping worlds and stopping countries from producing carbon? It is just giving an excuse to say, oh, let's continue production of carbon because hey, I'm doing work to capture that carbon that is
Right.
being produced. No, the work now is not capturing carbon. The work should be not making sure carbon is produced.
Right,
So
right.
that's a crazy um, thing that I've read about in the COP27. And I even heard this in the COP26. I was interviewing, I was there as a journalist, and then I was interviewing many NGO observers, and they were saying, what about the COP26 do you dislike? And they say, oh, the word carbon offsetting. We want to offset just to hide
Right.
from the fact that we are producing so much carbon. So that's something that
Yeah,
for
it's
some,
insane. Yeah, an insane solution, but in fact, you weren't able to address the root cause of the problem, right? I agree with that. Now, April, how about you? What are other false or um, pseudo solutions that you've seen throughout the this COP and for the longest time as a climate activist?
Yeah, I think this is something that hits closer to home. How most of the fossil fuel corporations that we have, particularly in the Philippines, since we're all clamoring for them to cut like coal, for example, to phase out the use of coal, now they're trying to endorse natural gas as a clean source of renewable energy. And it's not it. It's not it because natural gas is also a fossil fuel, and there's a lot of campaign going on, as in down to the community campaign, trying to convince people in the community that natural gas is a viable solution. It's a better solution, and this campaign is having happening somewhere very close to home, our katabing probinsya lang in the Occidental. So there's a lot again, that has to be done, because I think when we eh, talking about false climate solutions now, as a communicator, I just have to factor in there's a lot of greenwashing going on, but there's also a lot of, for the lack of a better term, manipulation, like trying to change the perspective of people towards, let's say, solutions, to call them solutions, but they're not solutions.
Right.
And that's why there also has to be an active counterpart to that kind of information dissemination. And so maybe we can talk about that more later, but this false solution, they're coupled with really also publicity, stunts that make people believe, as Val mentioned, that they're grand, that they're good, that they're effective, but they're
Mm.
not really. And so yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. No, we'll talk about that later and how they, what you said, for lack of a better term, manipulate also the narrative that what they're doing is actually helping the environment, but in reality, they're just trying to cover it up with greenwashing and offsetting. Yeah, like what you mentioned. So now, Kuya Rodney, I'll ask you this question. What's your observation on the Philippine delegation? Where do we stand in these dialogues about climate action?
Um, the law is very, very clear. The implementing rules and regulations of the Climate Change Act, as amended by the People's
Kuya Rodney, can you hear us? Kuya Rodney. Okay, I think Kuya Rodney is having uh, technical difficulties.
I think, yeah,
Go ahead, Val.
I think what Kuya Rodney was going to say, because I also interviewed him, I think he was going
Yeah.
to say that the law is clear about how our governments representing, the Philippines in the climate negotiations, the law clearly states that they need to be able to consult with multi-stakeholders to be able to bring to the table, to the negotiation table, the needs and
Mm-mm.
desires of the Philippine delegation. And I think that's what Kuya Ronnie was trying to say about the implementing rules and regulations. Now, if we send a Philippine delegation, in this case, the Department of Finance, I believe, with representation from the Climate Change Commission and DNR, but really it's the Department of Finance who's there um, on the negotiation tables. They're saying it is part of the IRR that
Yeah.
we need to consult with multi-stakeholders. This means not only government agencies, but as well as non-government organizations and civil society organizations who are not only at COP, but those who are not inside COP. And yeah, I think Kuya Rodney is back. Kuya Rodney, I
Kuya
was
Rodney, you're back.
think you're trying to say
Yes,
na dapat talaga consultative ang government when
yes,
they go on the negotiation table. That
Mm-mm.
was your intention, Kuya
that's
Rodney,
right.
di ba?
Yeah, that's right. And for the last many COPs since COP 23, no, COP 23 was the last COP that we saw civil society, the academe, and the government working together. That was COP 23, Fiji yung sponsor pero ginawa sa Bonn, Germany. After that, we have Poland. Uh, Wala nang masyado naging proseso. After Poland, we had Madrid, and Madrid, you can count in your one hand, no, kung ilan yung uh, pumunta. And
Mm-mm.
COP 26 in Glasgow, the government rejected our call to sit down with them and to work with them. And for us, this is violating, no, this is violating our rights and even violating the law. Um, we were happy that since April this year, the civil society ay mayroon ng chance, no, every month to
Mm-mm.
meet with the Climate Change Commission, and also the process of coming up with positions. It was unfortunate that the previous administration and the Climate Change Commission was put under the Department of Finance. Uh, we understand the situation of the Climate Change Commission, the complicated administrative processes na meron
Mm-mm.
sila. And right now, we have the Department of Environment and Natural Resources Secretary Loizaga being the de facto chair. So, hindi lang naging maganda ang naging proseso dahil hindi naging parte ang civil society
Civil
sa
society.
pag-come up ng
Mm-mm.
decisions. Hindi
Mm-mm.
na involved, no? Although naging open na sa ngayon, and we hope that we can still work together going to Bonn next year and COP 2028 sa Dubai. It is, sabi nga namin, parang ate, mahirap, ito yung sweetness and bitterness nung pagkatapos mong mag-break, makikipagbalikan ka, merong mga alanganing sitwasyon
Mm-mm.
na
Right.
kailangan mo mag-adjust.
Mm-mm. All right. Thanks, Kuya Rodney. I think he's having technical difficulties again. Anything to add, April?
Oh, I guess I would just like to put it out there that I think for this COP, the Philippine delegation, the head of the Philippine delegation, our secretary for DNR, and the vice chairperson for CCC. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Sir Rodney. They actually had to go back to the Philippines. So parang just a few days after, the Philippine delegation was medyo may ano in terms of leadership, because that was at that time, yun yung time ng budget hearing here in the country. So that was actually a big buzz even in the activist circle as to bakit ganun nung nangyari in the middle of negotiations.
Mm-mm.
So although Attorney Tony Lavinia, a veteran negotiator, climate negotiator, joined the party this time around. Kasi nung COP26, wala siya. So, but I mean, in terms of makeup, I think that's what happened for this COP.
Okay, thanks. Val, I think you were saying something a while ago or anything to add to what has been said. All right. Thanks, Val. Naging kanina when Kuya Rodney, you lost connection. Val shared na. Yeah, what your answer
Pero
during the
I
interview.
would like to make dagdag lang we met the Secretary Loizaga.
Mm-mm.
I haven't met Secretary Borge, but he has been updating. Yes, they went back to the Philippines
Right.
middle of the half of COP because of that, and it's a pity kasi without these people, no, without these people, the ministers, there are certain decisions and there are certain processes na kinakailangan may presence ng mga ministers. Kaya
Mm-mm.
we hope that next time kailangang maayos na to ng so may internal dynamics din naman sila.
Right. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kuya. Okay, thank you for that. No, now let's talk about yung climate literacy and public awareness. Nabanggit kanina ni April na ang daming mga companies yung nagkakaroon ng manipulation, the greenwashing and all that. And some people believe na, hey, they're doing that, that's fine. Let's still support these companies, no? Ang tanong ko ngayon, this question especially for Val, no? What must be done to improve climate literacy and public awareness? Kumusta ba yung media coverage on the climate crisis? Val?
Yeah, the conversation of COP27 and climate negotiations, for the most part, is covered by the media naman because it's a global thing, especially in Philippine media. But I think there needs to be extra efforts by the media and CSOs, NGOs working on climate communications to make it more digestible and understandable for general audiences. Because I think right now we are talking in silos and talking in echo chambers ngayon. Carbon offsetting needs to be explained. COP itself needs to be explained. The UNFCCC needs to be explained. So there is media coverage being done, but the quality of media coverage is, number one, it needs to reach masses. And number two, it needs to reach masses at a level that is understandable by them. Yan, yung mas maintindihan sana nila. And at IEDGE, I think the organization, just to really put it in, the Association of Young Environmental Journalists, it was April and I have been in IEDGE since 2017, and our goal really is to try to simplify climate information and environmental journalism. And we're doing extra work to put it to put conversations on climate on mainstream media. Kaso, Climate and environment, not so sexy in the media right now. We only talk about climate and the environment when there's disaster. Kapag tapos ng sakuna, kung may
Yeah.
namatay na. And we think that there's a more proactive way for media to approach climate conversations, to approach stories on climate and the environment. So, and I feel, so media is a business, just to really wrap up things. Media is a business. That means media should respond to what makes money and what doesn't. Right now, climate and environment does not make as much money as topics on politics, crime, drugs, business, entertainment.
Right.
And I think one of the ways in which we can make environment and climate sexier, not only in the way media covers it, is to include climate change, climate action in the curriculum in as early as junior high
Right.
and senior high. I was taking a
Right.
look at the senior high SHS curriculum guide on disaster, and there is not one topic there that is connected to climate, and that kind of that kind of is unfortunate because why would you not talk about climate when you talk about disaster? We know that climate change worsens and makes more frequent disaster. If our Filipino children know how to respond to disaster, that's great. But can we teach our Filipino children where disaster comes from? What worsens disaster?
Mm-mm.
What
Right.
lengthens disaster? And that's climate change. And so if we can integrate climate education in our school curriculum as early as junior high and senior high. Kasi mas naiintindihan na ang sciences sa junior high and senior high.
Mm-mm.
When you talk about climate, you have to talk about the science. So not as young as grade school, siguro, but on the level of junior high and senior high. So I feel like that is my most, I would like to emphasize that if we want to make climate sexier, we need to integrate it into the school curriculum as early as junior high and senior high.
Right. Right. Thanks for that, Val. No, I mean, I feel that there's a certain disconnect, or some children, some people, even as people my age, they feel that nature or climate is a topic that's so foreign that they are not affected by it because it wasn't learned in schools. And
Mm.
like what you said, it's not a sexy topic, but in reality, entertainment, politics, and all of that wouldn't exist if we don't have a planet to live in
Exactly.
anymore. So it's really something that we have to talk about. I'd like to ask April, as also part of IEDGE, how's the reception of these efforts that you've been doing in other areas? Like you try to mainstream the topics and, of course, laymanize it and make it digestible. What's the reception of those people that you've worked with?
Right. So Val mentioned earlier that traditional media really there's a gap
Right.
between the coverage of climate and environmental stories in traditional media, and the way an opportunity we found is that we just don't bank on traditional media. Now we have social media, we have digital media, and all in all, this changes um, narratives, this changes opinions. And so we found that a way to bridge that gap is to tap on young people who are, number one, digital nomads, so have more feel, are more well versed as
Mm-mm.
to how all these available mechanisms are. And when we capacitate them, that's exactly what we've been doing with IEDGE. We found that there are no better people to tell the stories of their own communities than the people who are actually in the
Mm-mm.
communities.
Mm-mm.
And I think ever since we've been doing environmental journalism and environmental education trainings, we've about capacitated about 200 young journalists and as well as school paper advisors. And their stories have been published in traditional media, even international media. So it's really just a matter of putting the stories out there. It's parang we're not trying to wait for traditional media anymore to pick up the stories. Instead, we're going to put the stories out there
Yeah.
and traditional media responds to it. And so if
Right.
you're asking about reception, that's the kind of reception that we're getting. In fact, just to be more specific about it, IEDGE did the coverage on a 700, oh sorry, 147, 174, ano ba yung nangyari sa memory ko? 174 hectare reclamation in Dumaguete City. We did a coverage on that, and that stirred up a really big buzz that was even picked up by Manga Bay. And all that buzz we created, all that coverage we've put out there, actually helped form the opinion of the people actually living in the city, not just
Right,
advocates
right.
all over the country, but people, layman people living in the city, to oppose and to see the harm that that project is going to do to them. And that really stirred up a sense of community in Dumaguete. And that led to the project actually being paused, actually being, okay, we're gonna put this back in the deciding table and we're gonna talk about it. So that's the kind of reception coverage does.
Right.
So
Mm.
we're really in the nature, we're really in the business of putting out facts, information, but also we're in the business of trying to set the priorities of the community. And so I guess that's what we've been trying to do, and that's the kind of reception that we're getting so far.
That's really good to hear, April. It's a very good strategy. You build it and people will come. They will listen. Put out the narratives. This is what's happening. People, you should care about this. It's really good. That's a really good thing that's happening in with your efforts. No, Kuya Rodney, anything to add? How do we really improve public awareness regarding issues on climate change and, of course, one that's been happening there in COP?
Well, I cannot agree more, no? Pero napakahalaga yung ginagawa ng IEDGE sa ngayon. Like the capacity is there.
Mm-mm.
That will lead us to actually capacitating mainstream media. Kasi sila yung we cannot deny the fact na malawak yung reach, no, nila.
Mm-mm.
Iilan lang yung mga reporters or journalists na nakakaunawa doon sa issue ng climate crisis. I've been interviewed by mainstream media many times, and sometimes uh, well, not sometimes, many times that some of them are hindi maintindihan yung mga terminologies and even yung mga iba't ibang and at the end kung magpe-present naman at magre-report na misinterpret or may mga misinformation
Mm.
or
Right.
siguro ay hindi maayos yung pagka-explain. So I think IEDGE has the role to play. The civil
Mm-mm.
society has the role to play as well to sit down with these mainstream media and even yung campus
Mm.
journalism, yung campus journalists na and even regional media kinakailangang mag-work together. And right now, ilan lang ng mga media outfits ang gumagawa nito. We have IEDGE, we have PJEN, we have Earth Journalism, and we have Climate Tracker as well
Mm-mm.
na nag-train. So hopefully,
Right.
yun nga, we have roles to play and we hope that we'll be able to work together.
Thanks, Kuya Rodney. Very important talaga, of course, capacitating everyone, no? Especially our journalists. And very commendable yung ginagawa ng IEDGE, your efforts now. Science communication, I feel, is very important. We really have to take a look at that and create and build more facilities and institutions that would focus uh,
Communicating
on
the
communicating,
science.
yeah, communicating the science in a simpler manner that won't be
Mm.
too intimidating for people. Because when some people hear methane gas, carbon monoxide, and all that, they get iffy about it,
Intimidated.
intimidated about it. Hey, I don't want to listen anymore. There's something too foreign for me. But in
Yeah.
reality, they should really know more about these things. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I think April will join us in a bit. She's having some technical difficulties though. Okay, my final question for tonight. We all know you've mentioned this a while ago, no, that climate action requires global action. It's not just a one man effort, one country effort. Effort shouldn't be siloed. So, what can our viewers do to help address environmental challenges? And what shall we demand from governments and other sectors in society? So, what can our viewers do, and what should we demand from governments and other sectors in society?
Siguro unahan ko na lang, no?
Ikaw,
Hindi
Kuya
ko alam
Rodney.
kung ng madlang people yung tinatawag na Climate Change Consciousness Week, which begins today. November 19 hanggang sa 25. I don't know also kung ito ay ginagawa sa mga munisipyo, no, at sa mga probinsya. Um, ang mas malaking maaaring gawin ng ating mga manunood at ng ating mga mamamayan ay tingnan kung ano yung mga democratic spaces na meron tayo. Kung may LCCAP man o Local Climate Change Action Plan,
Change
kung may
action plan,
Disaster
yes.
Risk Reduction and Management Plan, involved ba sila sa paggawa nito?
Mm.
Yung sa mga Local Climate Change Action Plan, na-involved ba sila sa pag-formulate nito? Kasi hindi ka makasusunod sa isang patakaran kung hindi ka naging bahagi ng
Mm.
paggawa nito. Hindi ka naging bahagi ng pagplano nito. How can we follow a law or a certain policy if we're not part of it, no, sa pag-craft nito? So,
Mm.
palagay ko, kinakailangan i-reclaim ng ating mga mamamayan yung espasyong iyon. Kailangan i-stress yung kanilang karapatan upang magkaroon ng inclusivity at lahat ng mga ginagawang bagay ng mga lokal na pamahalaan at nasyonal.
Thanks, Kuya Rodney. No, because for everyone, no, we are rights bearers. And our officials that we've elected are duty bearers. They have a duty to us, and as per the local government code, we have the right and also the duty, of course, to interact and to have constructive engagement with them. Kagaya na sinabi nga ni Kuya Roding LCCAP, we can be a part of those. So be active, no, in reclaiming the space and of course the power. Val, ano yung mga sa tingin mo our viewers can do and what should we demand from governments?
Mm. For viewers out there who have a sense, climate is climate is a buzzword in the last couple of years, siguro starting 2017 when it became mainstream through Thunberg's Fridays for Future movement. But we know that climate action, climate movements have been going on for many years, even before Greta came into the picture. But it's now the conversation is now becoming more mainstream for the madlang people who are watching and have a slight understanding of the terms that we're throwing around here and the negotiations and agreements and COP and carbon, etc. If you have a slight understanding of these concepts, that is an opportunity to open your laptop or your phone and search Google climate, Google climate action, Google carbon offsetting, Google conference of parties. All the information is right there, available for you to check out. We always say this at the yes, we cannot begin to care about something if we do not truly understand it. So, if we want to tell people to pursue climate action, they need to understand what climate is, what climate change is, why are we now in a climate crisis? Because, and this is how I tapped into my advocacy when I was in third year college, when I realized how much crisis we are all under.
Mm-mm.
When I learned more, sorry about the dogs, when I learned more about us being endangered as a species because of our own doing, that's when I said, oh, I cannot sit down and just have this happen. That's when I started to really do something about it. So
Mm-mm.
it's the consciousness and the awareness of it.
Right.
So read more about climate. And and what I do demand from government is that I demand government at the government, especially those at the negotiating table at COP, I demand them to demand and really push powerful countries to sign those agreements, to
Mm-mm.
finalize those financial facilities, because it will really benefit the Philippines at the end of the day. So I don't think there is no more room for diplomacy in the climate crisis. Maybe there is a diplomatic way to push for your interests, but I do believe that the interest of the Philippine government should be for its people at a time when we are a very climate change vulnerable country, when minimum 20 typhoons hit us every year and they hit us hard. So it is the responsibility, not only the mandate, but really the moral obligation of the Philippine government to really put out the interests of our country there at the negotiating tables.
Right, right. Thanks, Ayej. Vala Ayej.
Yeah.
Right. It's no time for dilly dallying. They have to put their foot down and demand for these things because we demand better. A lot of countries deserve better. Okay, April. Before you got disconnected, the question is, what can our viewers do to help address environmental challenges, and what should we demand from governments and other sectors in society?
Right. So first of all, I think I'd also like to start by saying thank you to our viewers for making time to watch our session tonight. This is a place to start. If you wanna like learn more about what's at stake or what's happening, essentially for all our survival, then this is a place to start. Second, as I mentioned earlier, where we are now in the climate crisis, we really need a multi-pronged, multi-sectoral approach to addressing to curbing the climate crisis. And one favorite line I always say is that we need all hands on deck. So let's be gentler with each other and harder on the systems. Whatever you can contribute for climate action, contribute it. Nothing is too small or too great. Contribute it. And second is to harness whatever power you have and form it into a collective. I believe in small revolutions because small revolutions really remind me that the power is truly in the people and that whoever seated in position, they're there to make decisions for us because we placed them there. And small revolutions remind us of that fact that we're not just helpless individuals or nobodies. And so, banking on that, let's all demand for the government, especially the Philippine government, to prioritize number one, declaring climate emergency, and number two, to prioritize climate action. We are an intensely climate vulnerable country. Just days before COP, we suffered the wraths of Typhoon Paeng. So activists, advocates went and attended COP knowing that the country is suffering, that their neighbors are probably just recovering from the typhoon. And the sad thing is we have really romanticized the Filipino resilience. And we should not romanticize the Filipino resilience anymore. We have no time to do that. We have no time to spare. And we, at this point, we probably should say we've had enough. And I'm proud of the Generation Z because I think more than ever, we've never seen a generation now more than ever that's collectively saying, you know what, we're not doing this anymore. And so that's number one, to demand that from the government. And number two is to listen to science, to listen to the experts. Val, Sir Rodney, and I, we're working largely in the development sector with CSOs, and we see how how CSOs and our scientists, we see how not naman little how valued little they are, but how sometimes their opinions are really not of value to our government. And I think that should change because they're experts for a reason, and the government should work on that, valuing, putting premium to whatever our experts say. And thirdly, I think we should demand the Philippine government, not number one, climate justice also not also, but climate justice can only be attained through good governance.
Right.
And above all, that is something we should be demanding from the Philippine government. If we cannot be certain of a government that's transparent, that's honest, that has our best interest at their heart, we cannot really hope for climate justice or for them to prioritize climate action. Because if they're not there to actually serve and they're just there to corrupt, what's to stop them from corrupting us from our future and in fact our present, right? So I would just like to end with this: harness your individual power, tap into your community, and power to the people.
Thank you so much, April. What a great way to end that. No truer words have been said. Thank you so much. Before we end the program, any last words or call to action or any events and campaigns? I'll start with Kuya Rodney. Any
We need to
campaigns,
learn.
events? Yeah,
Yes,
calls to
you
action.
guys. Yeah, we need to learn from the wrongs of the past. We need not repeat those anymore. And the knowledge and wisdom of the scientists we need to listen
Yes.
too, and so that we can have the right preparation. But at the end of the day, as April would always say, would say, yung relationships natin, yung relationships, kinakailangan palalimin natin sa isa't isa so that no one is left behind. Uh, we'll have a post-cop session on the, I think on the 29th and on the 23rd. We hope that you'll be able to join us, and it will be live as well. And but join us via Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Kuya Rodney. Val, anything to promote? Any campaign or events?
In the next month, in December, we will be training early to mid-career journalists together with University of the Philippines Marine Science Institute on marine science communication and science journalism. And we're excited to be able to work with them and train them on how to better communicate marine conservation issues. And this is a message to other institutions and the academe and non-government agencies that if you want to improve on your science communication skills, on your climate communication and environmental journalism capacities. We do a lot of that. That's the heart of what we do at AYEDGE. So you can reach out to us at info@ayedge.org, or you can visit us on Facebook. We're just AYEJ. We fine tune our trainings and workshops to align with your needs as an organization. So it is the best time to learn how to communicate climate, to communicate science, and communicate the environment, because there's no planet B. We only have one Earth, and we owe it to ourselves and the next generation of people to be able to breathe the same air, drink the same water, and see the same flora and fauna that we are enjoying right now. To not think about and not prioritize climate and the environment is arguably the most selfish thing you can do right now. So don't be selfish. You know what to do.
Thank, thank you so much, Val. April?
Right. So there's also a call for everyone who's watching, especially to our women and queer folks who are interested to learn more about the intersections of environmental action and to discuss more about our vulnerabilities. We're growing our network of ecofeminists, so you can follow us at the She Earth Network, where we hope to discuss gender-based and environmental issues and also provide psychosocial support during disasters. We're trying to do that
Right.
here in Central Visayas. So we hope for your support. You can follow us on Facebook. That's the She Earth Network. Thank you.
Thank you so much, April. And again, thank you so much to our guests for all the work that you do. And thank you for joining us here today. Thank you, Kuya Rodney of Living Laudato Si, Val of the Association of Young Environmental Journalists, and April of She Earth Project. Thank you so much, Padayon, and maraming salamat sa mga ginagawa niyong efforts. Hindi lang para sa bayan, kundi para sa ating planeta. Maraming salamat. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you po.
Thank you. All right, we were able to talk about a lot of things about our the state of our planet, the climate, and of course, the state, how vulnerable we are here in the Philippines. I'd like to reiterate April's point that it's about time to stop the romanticization of resilience, the Filipino resilience. Because if you're going to talk about resilience, resilience means building back better. But in the country right now, resilience means smiling through the storm, literal storm or literal flood. That's not it. We need to build back better. We need concrete solutions. And the people like Kuya Rodney, April, and Val, they've been asking for concrete solutions from our government, from different parties, especially now in COP. But it seems that it has fallen on deaf ears. And as individuals, we need to take action as well. As we need to demand for better governance. We need to demand for concrete solutions in order to address the problem of climate change, in order to for people who have been victims of climate change, for them to be repatriated. There are a lot of problems that can be solved if only people can work together, and our demands and our needs should and would be met. I would like to end this synthesis by saying that the future of our planet is in our hands. So don't drop it. All right. So now, here's an event on climate action that you might be interested in. Let's find out what's next. The UN Habitat Philippines, in partnership with Climate Change Commission, is inviting local government units and national actors to join this webinar entitled Leveraging Local Budgets for Climate Action in the Context of COVID-19 Recovery and Sustainable Environmental Management. Participants may expect to learn the latest information on climate action to ensure evidence-based planning and programming, effective implementation, and increased compliance and reporting. The two-day webinar will take place on November 22nd and 23rd via Zoom from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. You may register through the link on your screen. So that's at bit.ly/localccet2022. If you want to join, just go to that link, and we hope to see you on that webinar. So that's it for this episode. Thank you for joining us. And please share our live stream so more people can watch our chat. You may use our hashtags, #ChatUp and #RealTalkRealImpact. And also, please don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel. It's at Quarantalk Media. And follow us on Facebook for more updates and program. Again, it's at Quarantalk Media. And of course, we're also on Twitter, again with the same handle at Quarantalk Media. I am Jermaine Halandoni de Runia. Connect with me online on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You may see my SOCMED handles on the screen. So join us again next month for another Real Talk here on #ChatUp, Real Talk, Real Impact. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.